Story 1. The Secret Room. I was thrilled to have my own apartment for the first time. Even though the old building had creaky floors and the wallpaper was a faded color that might have looked stunning decades ago, it still felt like a place where I could make a fresh start. The walls were thick, almost too thick, making any noise seem like it was muffled by a heavy, invisible blanket. I told myself that it was just the charm of living in such an old part of the city. No matter how much you romanticize something, you can't ignore the age and the quirks that come with it. I'd find myself lost in how strange it was compared to everywhere else I had lived. As I settled in, I began to notice an old cabinet left by a previous tenant, painted over many times. The layers slowly peeling off like the bark of a weathered old tree. It was large and inconveniently placed, almost swallowing the entire wall it leaned against. I figured moving it someplace less obtrusive could be a long-term project, something to chip away at over time. Little did I know that what was behind it would make me question everything I thought I knew about this building. At night, I started hearing strange noises. At first, they sounded like cracking noises, similar to the expanding and contracting of old wood. The kind of noises I thought were simply the manifestation of an old building settling into its foundations. But then there were the tones, low and resonant, like someone humming a lullaby just out of tune and just out of reach. They could be incredibly unnerving. To distract myself from the unease growing inside me, I asked some neighbors about the previous tenant. An old man, they'd said, a reclusive sort known by gossip as grumpy and strange, though they'd promise he had never caused any real trouble. Conversations like these only fueled my curiosity about what sort of life had unfolded in the confines of this strange apartment. Every night, my discomfort grew as those unusual nocturnal sounds echoed through the quietness of my new home, as though trying to draw my attention to something hidden, something waiting to be discovered. One weekend, overwhelmed by the urge to organize and reclaim my space, I decided to repaint the forlorn and ancient cabinet. As I worked to move its hulking mass, I found it mysteriously lighter than anticipated, almost as if it wanted to reveal what lay hidden behind it. Dust enveloped me, stirred from its long slumber, and to my shock, I saw an outline of a door, hidden in the faded wallpaper. Curiosity outweighed caution, and my instincts, honed by years of being told to stay away from trouble, were promptly ignored. I pried the door open to discover a narrow staircase descending into what seemed like a secret room. As I crawled through and switched on the light of my phone, I was met with chains hanging from the ceiling, anchored to the stone walls. Tools littered the dusty floor, old tools, rustic, as if they had been used for something beyond the mundane. A shiver ran down my spine. Who had been here before me? Was it the old man? Or was this secret older than even him? It wasn't the tangibility of the chains that scared me, but the implications of their presence. What had truly unfolded in this space, long forgotten by time, or shamefully buried by those who wished it hidden. Some lingering, sick fascination urged me to run my fingers across the tools. A hammer, a blade, things layered with rust despite being recently cleaned. The room was looking like a macabre exhibit rather than anything useful. As I stood alone in that space of implied violence, it was as if the shadows themselves began to move with history, or perhaps with something darker still lurking beyond my sight. That night, the noises grew louder, the tones resonating with a hidden rhythm now clear, and distant cracking felt thicker, palpable. It was as if they echoed directly from the room below, fighting to surface into the world above. Fear snaked its way into my mind, momentarily overriding my curiosity. What if whatever presence left its mark in that room had never really left? My thoughts jumped from one chilling theory to another, each more grim than the last. Shadows lengthened against the dimly lit apartment walls, and whispering tones became an unwelcome lullaby under my bed. I tried to sleep, but my mind refused to rest. The next morning, wearied and pale from lack of sleep, I decided to confront the landlord. His reaction was sharp and defensive, like a cornered animal. "No, I don't know anything about a hidden space," he said, his words sharp with the bitterness of deflection. There was something in his eyes, though, a flicker of fear or maybe even guilt. He insisted I stay quiet, telling me contacting the police would bring unwanted attention and embarrassing trouble for everyone in the building. I saw it as desperation, an undercurrent of truth dancing at the edges of those hurried declarations. Without a plan and too frightened to find the courage to remain, I knew I couldn't stay another night in that apartment. I quickly packed a few essentials before the evening shadows could claim more than just my thoughts. My parents welcomed me back, perhaps sensing more than I let on. I never called the authorities, distressingly aware of the hidden stories that may be lost and what might be unleashed should they be revealed. Once home, cocooned in a place of safety and ignored intuition, I vowed never to return to that apartment. To this day, I wonder if another tenant stumbles upon that sealed door and what ghosts may reside, whispering cold truths in the quiet of night. The building still stands, and I avoid passing that street altogether, knowing that sometimes the past, no matter how buried, can never truly be hidden. Story 2: The Roommate. I found the room through a simple online listing. It was perfect. A cozy, affordable room in a shared house. A rare find given the area's high demand. My excitement about moving in was tempered only slightly by the realization that the previous tenant had moved out abruptly. Still, my new roommate, Lily, seemed kind and welcoming, eagerly helping me settle into the comfortable little two-bedroom home. The house itself was inviting, with its dimly lit corners providing just the right amount of serenity I needed. For the first few weeks, I felt at ease, diving into my own routines and mapping my life around the quiet lanes that surrounded us. But soon, beneath the veneer of normalcy, subtle oddities began to surface. There were the strange, muted sounds at night, the occasional creaks in the floors that didn't align with the peacefulness of the place. Lily's friendly demeanor sometimes ebbed towards curious intensity. She began asking about my daily routines, delving into specifics that seemed uncomfortably detailed, like what time I usually got home, or if I liked to leave the windows open at night. Her questions slipped so easily into our conversations that it took me a while to realize how invasive they were becoming. Lily had this habit of cooking us dinner, a generous gesture I appreciated initially. But after a few weeks of accepting her home-cooked meals, I noticed a peculiar mental fog that descended upon me after dinner, especially when she served chamomile tea. The fog didn't concern me at first, but as it persisted, I began to dread the after-dinner drowsiness that seemed to deepen each night, leaving me with a nagging intuition that something wasn't right. The nights seemed to stretch longer as the darkness outside crept into the house. I would hear footsteps pacing the narrow hallway outside my bedroom door, and soft tapping noises that never failed to churn my stomach with a growing disquiet. Whenever I summoned the courage to investigate, Lily's door would always be closed, lights off, assuring me, or rather, pretending, to be asleep. The more I listened to the silent whispers of the house, the more I doubted the reality I was living in. One night, as slumber half claimed me, a peculiar awareness halted my sleep. There by the window, Lily stood silently, her silhouette blending into the shadows. I lay paralyzed, my heart pounding in my ears, until with a rush of panic, I reached for the light. The sudden brightness scattered the shadows, revealing only my cluttered room. Lily was gone. I clung to the comforting lie that it was nothing but a dream, yet each nerve echoed the chilling truth of what my eyes had seen. The confrontation the next day bore no solace. Her nervous laughter dismissed my fears as imagined, leaving me dangling in a limbo of disbelief and suspicion. A few days later, the bathroom offered a warning I could no longer ignore. After stepping out of a hot shower, as the steam enveloped the room, I saw a single, chilling word scrawled across the mirror: leave. The air rushed from my lungs, my heart a jarring rhythm against the stillness. No one else was home. The message stood stark and irrefutable, a call to action too urgent to dismiss. In that moment, every strange occurrence sharpened into clarity. The depths of fear ignited my resolve. I had to leave, and I had to leave now. Collecting my things with a frantic urgency that betrayed my outward calm, I fled the house, my mind racing through every odd moment that had led me there. My friends opened their home to me, providing sanctuary from the paranoid reality I was escaping. It took days for the anxiety to dull, to begin feeling a semblance of safety again, yet living with strangers, a once practical solution, became an impossibility lodged firmly in my mind. Weeks passed, and just as my sense of normalcy began to rebuild, I received a message from an untraceable number. A photo of my old room, captured from within the confines of the very house I had left behind. The sinister familiarity of it twisted my newfound serenity back into a coil of tension. I blocked the number instantly, the shadows of the past once again extending towards me. As I vowed never to live with a stranger again, an inexplicable chill affirmed my decision, leaving me questioning how close madness could lay within the ordinary lives we choose. Story 3. Backyard Findings. I finally fulfilled a lifelong dream, buying my first home, a quaint old house nestled in a sleepy suburb. Its charm was undeniable, with a sprawling garden and an inviting porch where I imagined sipping coffee on quiet mornings. My dog, Max, a calm and loyal Labrador, moved in with me, his playful demeanor complementing the serenity I hoped would define our life here. Yet, from our very first day, an undercurrent of unease trickled through my excitement. Max, usually relaxed and content, started behaving anxiously, sniffing fervently around the house, especially near corners and floorboards. His odd behavior planted a seed of discomfort in me, whispering that something was amiss beneath the pleasant facade. Settling into the rhythms of the neighborhood, Max seemed extra on edge outside, his restlessness growing in intensity. He would circle and scratch at certain patches in the garden with such determination that it puzzled me. These were not traces of playful digging, but urgent excavations, as if drawn by some unseen force. One particular afternoon, Max presented me with a dirty old bone he had unearthed, dropping it at my feet with a mix of pride and anxiety. I laughed it off, assuming he had stumbled upon an animal bone left long ago. Yet, even as I cast a light-hearted mock scolding toward him, the unease returned, stronger and more persistent than before. Over the following days, Max's obsession with the garden intensified, his excavations yielding more bones, each beguilingly larger and more sinister. my amusement faded into dread, as the possibility of these being something more than animal remains struck me. Every bone seemed to demand acknowledgement of a deeper, chilling truth I was reluctant to face. Our quiet home now harbored an unsettling air of mystery, each garden disturbance amplifying my anxiety. The garden became a space of suspicion rather than solace, tainted by the relics it was gradually revealing. Night brought no reprieve. Max, once my guardian in solemn comfort, became avoidant, refusing to step outside into the yard under the cover of darkness. He growled at the back door, his pacing restless, his demeanor communicating an unshakable apprehension. I, too, began to notice oddities. The strange indentations and disturbed patches of soil where I knew no digging should have occurred. Each discovery felt like layers peeling from a sinister secret buried beneath our garden. The growing fear coiled tight within me, leaving me on edge. The darkness outside our window feeling less like a peaceful night and more like a waiting entity. One evening, in a bout of sleeplessness, I took one of the larger bones inside, examining it closely under better light. The weight of the bone in my hand seemed to resonate with the ominous truth I had been avoiding. In my hesitation, it transformed from a mere object to a conduit of dread. As I turned it over, the realization struck undeniably. This bone had a shape too familiar, too human. My breath hitched, the room spinning as the horrifying implications unraveled in my mind. We were living above what could be a grave, a burial ground for someone whose life had ended in our garden. The next day, propelled by the urgency of my fear, I contacted the police. They trooped into the garden, a stark contrast against the vibrant foliage. Their expressions mirroring my disbelief as they unearthed more human remains. The air felt thick with the weight of unresolved endings, each unearthed bone a silent testament to violence, mystery, and abandonment. The investigation spread like wildfire in the suburb. Neighbors whispering, eyes cast toward my home as if it stood at the center of an unsolved puzzle. News headlines seized the story, but the heart of the mystery eluded everyone. The remains matched no missing person on record, abandoning the souls found within to nameless limbos. I was left with a home that no longer felt like my own. Shaken by the revelations, I resolved to sell the house, eager to escape its eerie grip. Yet, the intense media attention and the unsettling mystery scared off prospective buyers. The truth of what lay beneath overshadowed the charm of what was above, rendering my hopeful life here into a haunting permanence. I was stuck, tethered to a chilling enigma that curled around our quiet suburban existence, each shadow echoing the secrets the garden refused to release. Max, once my source of calm, seemed exhausted by our experiences. His loyalty tethered him to me, even as his eyes carried a weary watchfulness now. I often found myself staring into the garden, wrestling with questions left unanswered. Whose bones lay beneath? What stories did they carry? What darkness had touched this ground before us? My feelings vacillated between resignation and a deeper understanding of mystery. The garden's hold on us both intimate and chilling. This home may trap me, but the truth of its past, as much as it frightened me, also connected us to its long and unresolved history. And so, I remained, sifting through the life's mysteries unearthed by chance and guided by the instincts of a loyal dog, whose unsettled rest mirrored my own.